I want to say sorry at first. Actually, I received this PC in March and wanted to show you, but because of the pandemic lockdown, the assessment was delayed. After 2 months, Alienware X14 R1 is still the thinnest all-round laptop, with 75 watts DJU in its 14-inch body. How about its performing? Well, let's test it. Specs first. i7-12700H CPU, 14 cores and 20 threads, with RTX 3060 DJU of 75 watts at its max, 32 GB RAM. SSD is Kioxiax G7 of 2 TB at PCIe 4.0 for speed, a 14-inch IPS screen with 1080p resolution, 144 Hz refresh rate, and 100% P3 nominal color gamut. There are lots of options for the specs: i5 and i7 CPU, 3050-3050 Ti, and 3060 GPU, and 3 choices for RAM and SSD. The price varies from $14.94 to $29.89. Enough budget may support it, or you can watch this video. Maybe you can afford it someday. Next, exterior. My first impression of it is its thin body. 14.5 millimeters as the brand said, and 14.8 millimeters of the thickest part as we tested. Most IGPU Ultrabook is at about 16 millimeters, and most thin gaming laptops can reach 20 millimeters. At the same time, it has a strong structure. Screen, base panel, and bottom case are hard, and nice touch for surface coating. Slimmest body and quality texture show me a sense of delicateness. For X14 focuses much on the thinness. It has not much superiority on weight. It weighs 1.8 kg, close to that of many all-round laptops with big screen. Besides, following the design of X15 and X17, it has a tail. The projection of it is like a square. As for light, logo on the lid and keyboard both support RGB single-zone backlit keyboard, but the tail can't be lit. 16:9 screen, easy to open the lid to 130 degrees. Above is the camera. The screen to body ratio is not that good. Color volume 106.2% P3, color coverage 99.3%. It has a file for color correction. In SHRI-B standard, average delta E is 1.23 and max delta E is 2.38. The max brightness is at 430 nit. As for response time, black to white response time is 6.9 ms, gray to gray is 6.4 ms, relatively fast, but there's an 8% overshoot in gray to gray upstream. In short, nice color gamut, accuracy and brightness, good, but it is not the best for 1080p and 144 Hz specs. If raise its resolution, change the ration to 1610, or narrow its bezel, it will look better. Base panel. Through the honeycomb openings on the top of the keyboard, we can see 2 fans inside. These openings may be helpful for thermals, but looks a little disgusting. Power button is next to the delete, different press feeling, but no accidental touch protection. Smaller keycap than normal size, but striking and key travel are nice, quite rare in PCs thinner than 15 millimeters. It even has full-size arrow keys. Hope HP and ROG can learn from it. Nice touch for tapping and sliding on the touchpad, but kind of small, for the keyboard takes up the space. Bottom case, whole white, in the center, a honeycomb air inlet. In general, I like its exterior. It's a miracle for 3060 all-round PC to be within 15 millimeters and retain wonderful process and texture. X14 has the most special look among 14-inch all-round PCs of this year. And the port, all ports are at the rear side. On the left is an all-round Type-C with USB 3.2 Gen 2 rate, suitable for the adapter. On the right are 2 Thunderbolt 4 for extra units, and a port of USB 3.2 Gen 1, a HDMI 2.1, a 3.5mm combo jack, and a micro SD card reader. IRO specs are abundant at this thickness, enough for daily use, but it's a little inconvenient as ports are on the rear side. After exterior, let's dismantle it, then look at its internal layout. Loosen all screws on the bottom and tail first. 2 screws on the bottom surface cannot be removed. No fixed sequence for dismantling rear and lid. It uses classic inverted motherboard design. Battery takes up half the volume, 80.5 Wh capacity. PC Mark 10 Modern Office for 9 hours and 31 minutes, above the average level in the 12th generation core, longer than some IGPU Ultrabooks. Wi-Fi card and hard disk can be replaced here. Initial Wi-Fi card is Intel X211. On the right is a XG7 SSD of Kioxia 2280 2 terabytes. Small capacity sequential read 6400, sequential write 5000. After filling 45 grams cache, 1800 write speed can be maintained. RAM is 32 GB LPDDR5, 5200 MHz. Read or write rate is faster than DDR5 4800. And I noticed that in specs on sale, versions of 3060 GPU are all with 5200 MHz RAM, while 3050 and 3050 Ti veer with 4800 MHz RAM. I guess package specs of 3060 is different from 3050 and 3050 Ti. To test thermals, turn the motherboard over, remove the battery, SSD and Wi-Fi card, unscrew the screws, disconnect cables, then remove the motherboard. It uses 2 fans, 4 heat pipes, and 4 exhaust vents. Heat pipes and the fins of rear exhaust vents are hidden in the tail, so the fins can be more thick to expand thermal area and remain the thickness of the screen. Still working on the thinnest. So the fins are small on the side exhaust vents, for they are supplementary. The VC vapor chamber under heat pipe, gallium alloy between vapor chamber and CPU to conduct heat. Considering its price, to protect its liquid metal coolant, we won't dismantle further. Next, stress test. 25 degrees Celsius, stress test FPU. CPU is at 88 degrees Celsius, 55.2 watts package power, 42.5 watts IA power. Test GPU, it's at 68.2 degrees Celsius. Dual stress test, CPU is at 81 degrees Celsius, 30 watts package power, 15.6 watts IA power. GPU is at 69.5 degrees Celsius. Shift to full speed mode in the control center. CPU is at 80 degrees Celsius, package power 35 watts. GPU is at 66.9 degrees Celsius, 60 watts. Total power is still 95 watts. Next, exterior temperature, F7, the hottest keycap, 46 degrees Celsius. Central keyboard is at 42 degrees Celsius. WASD is at 39 degrees Celsius. Space is 40.3 degrees Celsius. Left palm rest is 36.7 degrees Celsius. And the noise, its fan noise under full load is 52.1 dB like the mainstream gaming laptop, not loud. Notably, full speed mode and performance mode have the same speed, so no difference in noise. For me, the performance release of X14 is okay within the 15mm body. Total power can reach 95 watts at dual stress test. But its body is too thin, the exterior temperature may be a little high. However, the biggest merit of its thermals isn't on the above, it's the performance without plugged in. Regarding this point, in first minutes, CPU maintains above 45 watts, GPU above 50 watts, 20 minutes after. CPU and GPU can still maintain at 30 plus 60 watts. This result is better than many gaming laptops that can't turn on high performance mode without power supply. But under this power consumption, battery only works for a while. Its power dropped to 50% after 20 minutes in stress test, 33% after 30 minutes, and the body would become very hot, so this function is prepared for emergency. For example, when you play the game, the power was cut off. This function may support you to finish the game. After thermals, let's see its performance. CPU uses i7-1700H, 6P cores and 8E cores. Cinebench R20 single thread scored 673. Multi-core part, after the R20 loop test, it remains at 5550. In the test, CPU reaches 90 watts at most in the first round, then back to 71 watts. In other rounds, it reaches 75 watts, then back to 70 watts. With this thin body, its performance is terrific, but its CPU on-core power consumption is quite high, almost 10 watts, so it decreases the actual power consumption for the core. Then GPU, it uses RTX 3060 with 75 watts max power. It scored 7,361 in 3D Mark times by 8,930 in Phi, 4,387 in Superposition Classroom. In general, it's 83% of 140 watts 3060 at full power. Worse on absolute performance, but it reaches 80% performance with half of the power consumption, which means the performance per watt of 75 watts 3060 is acceptable. After the benchmark, let's test it with some games. It supports Advanced Optimus. We will shift to MUX in the test. Online games first. Native 1080p resolution, average 135 FPS in .2 of the top settings, 515 in CSGO of the lowest settings. Then, 3 games, under ultra settings, only 88 FPS for Shadow of the Tomb, 48 FPS for Metro Exodus, Cyberpunk 2077, Forza Horizon 5, and Warhammer 3 are all at around 48 FPS. 75 watts 3060 is not qualified for 3 at highest settings. We also tested Elden Ring at highest settings. It could maintain 60 FPS for indoor battles and 50 FPS for outdoor scenes. Smooth image can be achieved by lowering settings. Then, software for content creation. It performs well in Photoshop, scoring 1,124, higher than many 15 and 16-inch gaming laptops. AE scored 951, similar with other gaming laptops. Because Premiere has more needs for multi-core CPU, X14 gets lower scores than other gaming laptops, 803. At last, SpecView 2020 test. Industrial software consumes GPU a lot, so X14 gets lower scores than thick gaming laptops, but not much. In short, among 14-inch all-round PCs, X14 is not the best, but still terrific. After all, it's rare to have DJU in such a thin laptop. According to the test, X14 can run 3 games with medium or high settings, clip short videos, retouch photos, but its CPU power consumption need to be optimized. 10 watts on-core power consumption is a little high. I'm sure you've learned about this laptop so far. As usual, 3 pros and 3 cons for you. Merits. First, thin body. Good texture. Its body is compressed within 15 millimeters and has a quality process, color matching, and touch. I like its exterior, like a handicraft. Amazing. Second, it performs well after unplugging without power supply. X14 still performs in a rather high level. In emergency, battery can support jobs requiring high performance, so you don't need to find socket. It's common for Evo certified Ultrabooks, but for DJU all-round PCs and gaming laptops, rare. Third, good after-sales service, supporting service on call for 2 years and accident solution. X14 supports service on call for 2 years and accident solution once a year. That means if you break it by accident, you can repair it for free. After merits, defects are as follows. First, high exterior temperature at full load. In dual stress test, the keyboard reaches 46 degrees Celsius at most. Central keyboard gets over 40 degrees Celsius. Its body is too thin, sacrificing the heat insulation. Next, plug in or unplug inconveniently. The number of IRO is more than other PCs with the same thickness, but they are all in the rear. You need to turn its body as you need, which is inconvenient. Add a port and C port on the side may be better. Third, screen panel is not the top for a PC more than $2,990. This screen is too ordinary. Like the way they do to X15 R2 or X17 R2. If there are lots of screens for options, like 2165 Hz plus 16:10 ratio, it may be more in line with its high-end positioning. I've tested some 14-inch all-round PC. They are all good, but X14 is the only one bringing me newness. It successfully stuffs DJU in a body less than 15 millimeters and maintains top process and texture. Compared with other all-round PCs, this laptop has its characters, presenting as a high-class product. Although it doesn't have top performance, but as the results we tested, it works for games of medium and high settings and light content creation. It also has good performance after unplugging. Clearly, from X17, Alienware has changed its plan. It didn't join the competition on performance release or thermals, but focused on thin body with delicateness. It also works on performance to pursue its feature. X17 of the last year is good, and X14 of this year surprises me as well. Hope Alienware can keep going. As for the advice, considering its high price, people with sufficient budget could consider it. Its most striking feature is the thin body and good performance release compared with that of the same size. If you prefer pretty exterior and process, it has few competitors. You can buy it. That's all about Alienware X14. Please hit like and subscribe to our channel. If you want to interact with me every day, please follow us on WeChat official account. This laptop may be worth it or not, but all we want is to provide info and guidance. This is BIBA Laptops. I'm Juan. See you next time.